All right, welcome back with another review here. Today is Sunday, which means I'm going to be doing Eastern Europe. I actually have my lower division preview going up later today after this video, where I'm going to be previewing the next week of lower division Dota. But before that, again, back to the review here. I'm going to be going through both divisions, starting with the upper division, taking a look at the past week's matches, taking a look at the updated standings, and then going over some stats, whether that be the best and worst heroes of the week, some of the players that have been standout, and some of the teams that have had the best stats as well. Again, I'm going to be trying to go through this match review a little bit faster this time. I found in my SEA review that I did yesterday, I spent like 75% of the video just talking about the matches, which is, if that's something that you guys want, let me know. I'd be happy to keep it the way that it was. But for this video, I'm going to be trying out just going through it a little bit quicker, giving a little bit less of a descriptive review, and instead just kind of give a brief little overview of how the series generally went. Starting off in this upper division, debuting this series, this one didn't actually get started until Thursday. We had Gambit and Empire facing off. Of course, Empire coming in from the lower division. Not exactly projected to be one of the best teams, not only because they're coming in from the lower division, but also because it's not really the same roster at all. They got them into the upper division in the first place. They lost a lot of their key members. And Gambit was one of the best teams in last season, in the last tour. They did lose quite a few members, but they're still looking like one of the better teams in this region. And this was a pretty good series for Gambit. This is actually one that I already reviewed previously earlier on in the week, so I won't talk too much about it. But overall, fantastic series for Gambit. Alberca on his debut on his Monkey King, he played in both games. Fantastic series for him. And Lorinov on the mid lane playing Death Prophet and Leshrac in both games, making those nice early rotations to those towers, using his Diabolic Edict and Exorcism to take those early tier 1 towers. All around a great series for Gambit. Later on in that same day, we had PuckChamp versus Navi, and heading into this one, both of these teams kind of projected to be around the middle of the pack, maybe Navi a little bit higher up than PuckChamp, but that is not at all the case. This looked like one of the higher tier teams just kind of beating on a lower tier team. This wasn't necessarily a stomp. I wouldn't call this series a stomp. The games were both over 40 minutes each, but this was a very well executed series for PuckChamp. Very clean Dota, really giving Navi no opening and stuff like that. So they didn't necessarily stomp them, but it was a very slow, constrictive, eventual win that really just Navi did not look like they had any chance. In both games, they ran an IO Razor, which they first phase picked. Navi didn't bother banning either of those in the second game. And yeah, this was a very good series for PuckChamp. There was even some points in game 2 where Navi had a few openings, like they would have a fight start off with a really good pickoff, or maybe even 2 good pickoffs, and still they would lose the fight. They would have a 3v5 fight and they would still find a way to lose it. So yeah, again, I was super impressed with PuckChamp, and this wasn't even the end of the week for them either. They would end up having another match. But before we get there, we had, of course, Team Spirit debuting this new season, of course, being the defending TI champions and whatnot. They were going to be starting off on December 3rd, which was Friday, up against Unique, which I was really excited for because not only is it Team Spirit, the first time that we're going to be seeing them since they won TI, but also they're going against Team Unique, who is a team that is projected to be one of the stronger of the region, definitely a top half team. And God, it just did not look like that. This was another series where it just looked like one team was just handling the other. Like Team Spirit, their whole team was just playing fantastically. It was so clean. It was so confident. It was so Team Spirit-esque. It really looked like they are still harnessing some of that like dark horse magic that they had at TI. And Collapse had himself a hell of a series as well. He actually played Centaur in game 1, which was a little weird. I've seen him play so much Mars, Tidehunter, and Magnus that it was a little strange seeing him play Centaur, but he does in fact play other heroes. However, in game 2, he did end up playing that Mars, and he had a pretty fantastic game. So Team Spirit, fantastic series. They look like the clear front runner for first place. I know it's just one series in, but man, they looked really good. And finally, ending things off earlier today, we had 2 series, the second of which actually just finished before I started recording this video. We have PuckChamp taking on Gambit. So of course, these 2 teams have already played this week. They both get off to 1-0 starts, so this is kind of nice. It's both teams having very good series. PuckChamp maybe having a little bit more of a dominant series than Gambit, facing off against one another. And holy crap, PuckChamp is proven that first series against Navi was not a fluke. This series looks so good that right now I am convinced that these guys are one of the front runners for a major spot. Of course, Eastern Europe has 3 major spots available, so Team Spirit and PuckChamp, I'd say get 2 of those. So depending on who the third one ends up being, it should be Virtus.Pro, but judging from that last series, there may be more to discuss about Virtus.Pro than we previously thought. All around, great series for PuckChamp. They're still playing super clean. Again, this wasn't just a fluke win or a close game win. No, this was a pretty convincing win over Gambit, a team that had already had themselves a pretty convincing win earlier this week. So again, PuckChamp goes up 2-0. I had actually run a poll on my channel last night where I asked you guys who you thought was going to win, and it was only a 29% favoring for PuckChamp on a total of 72 votes. So Gambit, again, not only favored by myself, projected to be one of the better teams, but also my viewers. You guys thought that Gambit really had this one, and despite that, Gambit ends up taking this one, and it turns out you guys would not be wrong. Not be right later on today as well, as we had Virtus.Pro taking on Hellraisers. This one should have been a stomp in the favor of Virtus.Pro. Hellraisers, a team just like Empire, coming in from that lower division. They lost a lot of their roster. They're not the same team that got into this upper division in the first place. There's not really a whole lot on their roster to get too excited about. And Virtus.Pro, top 6 finisher at TI, they make some changes to their roster, but it seemed like it was Virtus.Pro's choice to make those changes. It wasn't like their players left. I'm sure if Nightfall and Save wanted to continue playing with them, they would have, but they bring in these new players, Virtus.Pro looking like this is an improvement that they're looking to make. And, it's hard to say because, again, this is just the first series, but we can have our discussions about would the old Virtus.Pro, would they have won this series? Would they have won 2-0? Would they have still lost? Would they have lost even harder? It's hard to say because Hellraisers did play a very good series. They kind of crushed VP in Game 1. In Game 2, they do lose. I do think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with their draft a little bit. It looked like they kind of went for a draft that they knew that they had comfort on, but it didn't exactly match the game, the energy of the game and the energy of the draft all that well, which VP would end up exploiting all the holes in that draft the longer that game went on. But in Game 3, Virtus.Pro was playing some of their most comfort heroes ever. I mean, they had DM playing his Timbersaw, which if you recall from last season, when Virtus.Pro literally did not drop a single series. So they're already off to a worse start than both of their previous seasons combined. They didn't drop a single series, and Timbersaw was a hero that they were consistently just destroying teams with. And sure, the hero has gone through its fair share of nerfs, but it never really felt like Virtus.Pro ever had a foothold in this game. Whether or not that was because of the draft, because they did let the Ursa through, which is a pretty big counter for Timbersaw, especially with the new Diffusal Blade build up. It'd be a little bit different if it was the old Battle Fury SNY Ursa build that's a little bit slower. But man, I gotta say, overall, really impressed with Hellraisers. They've really given me something to be excited about when it comes to watching their matches. And Virtus.Pro, again, would the old VP have won this series? Can't really say for right now. So yeah, and again, I ran a poll for this one as well, which I've got marked next to here. Only 10% of people that voted out of 90 votes, so only 9 of you guys actually thought that Hellraisers would win this series. So even more heavily favored towards Virtus.Pro than the first series that we had earlier today. And again, it turns out everyone was wrong, myself included. I really thought VP would have this, but they looked pretty shaky. So yeah, so taking a look now at the updated standings, again, PuckChamp being one of the only teams that play 2 series, they make quick work of that. They go 2-0 on the week. Very good start for them. Following that, we have Team Spirit, Hellraisers tied with 1 win each on 1 series. We then have Gambit, who has split both of their series so far. They're sitting at a 1-1 record in the middle of the pack. We then have Virtus.Pro, Navi, Empire, and Unique, all sitting at 0-1 right now. So none of these teams exactly starting off how they thought they would, especially maybe Virtus.Pro. But again, they're looking for that bounce back. There's still plenty of time. There's still 5 more weeks of Dota, including a big break in between week 3 and week 4. More time to train for VP, but also more time to train for some other teams. We'll have to see. Taking a look now at some stats. There were 11 matches played total so far. Actually, Radiant not doing so hot this week. Only 4 wins on 11 games for Radiant. And first pick as well, only 5 wins on 11 games. So it seems to be a pretty division-based stat. I like yesterday in my Southeast Asia review, I know that in the upper division, Radiant and first pick were a lot better, but in the lower division, Dire and last pick were a lot better. It seems to be a real preference thing based on maybe some skill level difference. But yeah, here it seems like if you're on Dire last pick, you do have a pretty big advantage. The top heroes of the week, Razor going 3-0. We then have Mars going 3-1, and Bane going 4-2. So that hero, again, very popular, was very popular in SEA. Team Spirit, one of the teams that popularized it all the way back at TI, notably played it this week, and they made it look pretty good. The worst hero of the week, there really weren't all that many heroes that had terrible win rates. Most of the heroes that had a lot of losses on them also had quite a few wins on them. Heroes like Io and Snapfire just had a lot of games in general, but hovered around the 50% win rate mark. So the only one I could really find was Monkey King, and even he doesn't have a terrible win rate. Notably, he was played, I believe, all 3 times in that VP series, and I'm pretty sure the Monkey King lost every single game in that series. I could be remembering wrong, but yeah, Monkey King had a rough day today in the upper division. Looking at the most banned, of which there were 53 different heroes banned across this past week in those 11 games, Weaver being banned in 10 out of the 11 games, which is ridiculous. And if you're curious, the only game that Weaver wasn't banned, he was picked, and it was a win. So Weaver right now, 100% win rate on one game, the only game that he wasn't banned. So they might be onto something with banning this hero every game. Next up, Invoker with 8, which is something that we saw with Southeast Asia as well. And then Terrorblade, one that I was more surprised about. And Lena, again, showing up with 7 bans each on those 2. Again, Lena, one that is proving to be a much more dominant mid laner as opposed to a flex pick nowadays. Therefore, she's pretty worthy of those bans. Taking a look at some of the top teams right now when it comes to stats. The top GPM teams right now, and pretty much all the top teams for every category in this, are PuckChamp, Spirit, and Hellraisers. Notably, PuckChamp and Spirit have a pretty big gap in their lead ahead of Hellraisers, but notably, PuckChamp leads with 24-38, which is pretty impressive considering they also have 2 series under their belt. Which means that they've been able to stay consistent. Team Spirit sitting at 24-31. Both of their games were stomps, so usually your GPM increases as the game goes on, but since they ended both of their games quite early, it's still very impressive that it's this high, as if those games were maybe just 5-10 minutes longer, this GPM would be a lot higher. And finally, Hellraisers sitting at 22-14. At the XPM, again, same teams. PuckChamp sitting with 28-58. We have Team Spirit sitting with 27-48. And then Hellraiser sitting with 27.07. And finally, with our KDAs, PuckChamp, again, a very impressive 8.82 KDA. Team Spirit, 8.19 KDA. And Hellraisers all the way down at 4.13. So much lower than the first 2, but again, still quite impressive, considering the fact that they played against Virtus.Pro as well. So yeah, taking a look now at some of the top players. Yatoro sitting at 684 GPM. He leads the race. Right behind him is Krilat, only 3 GPM behind with 681. He, of course, being a part of PuckChamp. We have Torontotokyo, which is unusual for a mid laner to be showing up on here. Again, especially since those series, the games in those series were very, very quick. But he shows up here with a 642 GPM. For XPM, we have Rebel from Hellraisers actually leading the way. Again, very impressive considering he played against VP. He has a 754 XPM right now. Torontotokyo 724, and Krilat coming all the way from PuckChamp. He has a very impressive 717. Finally, the top KDAs right now, we have Young G with a 20 KDA, which of course that's very high. Only one series so far that's likely going to get adjusted. He as well playing on PuckChamp. He is their mid laner. We have Yatoro with 19 and Krilat with 14.6. So yeah, all around, pretty entertaining week, I gotta say. I'm really excited to watch a lot more of these teams. I've been loving watching Team Spirit and PuckChamp so far. I think they've been playing the cleanest over the region so far, and I'm really excited to see how Virtus.Pro bounces back in this next week. They are looking for another win, and even though the win that they got in this first series here, it didn't look like the old Virtus.Pro that we were used to seeing. Again, this is the first time they've lost a series in the DPC ever, at least in its newest format. So, yeah, we'll have to see how that goes for them. And if things get off to a rocky start, they might end up missing the major. Again, I've already talked about Team Spirit and PuckChamp looking like the most likely front runners for those 2 major slots. There is still one left, but there are also a lot of really good teams that are up for that major slot. So, yeah. Finally now, moving on to the lower division, starting off with the matches of the week. Again, some of these I've already talked about in my old review format, but I'm going to be going over them again a little bit quickly. Starting off with Gambit 2 versus Bait. Again, this is not the same Gambit as in the upper division. The first one is sponsored by ASM or AS Monaco. This one is not. In this series, Bait notably got off to a very impressive start. Game 1, they were making some very nice rotations, opening up the map quite a bit, but they just kind of let it slip away from themselves in the mid game, and Gambit was there to capitalize on that. So Bait, overall, showed a lot of signs of life, showed a lot of room for improvement, that's for sure, but in their early game, they were notably very, very strong. but they kind of just fell apart. And that's not something that's unusual for a new team. Usually new teams are very good at staying composed for maybe the first little while, but as the game goes on, players are less experienced with one another, things start to fall apart a little bit. And it looked like that's exactly what happened in this series. So Gambit takes that one with a 2-0 series win. Moving on now, on December 2nd, we had CIS Rejects playing against Nemiga. Of course, this being CIS Rejects' debut in the DPC. This is the stack consisting of Ramses, Pasha, Rodgers, F&D, and Depress Kid. They came in through those open qualifiers playing against Nemiga, a team that has been hovering in the lower division for some time now. And God, you could not even really tell that CIS Rejects was the new team here, because they really kept up with the Nemiga. Notably, this was a pretty close series. Again, CIS Rejects only really kept up with Nemiga. Game 1 was a very, very long game. I believe it was the longest game to that point in the DPC across all regions, where the two teams were very farmed, very equally matched, but whenever one team was able to get a pick off or maybe win a team fight, they didn't have any pushing heroes. Like, CIS Rejects had a Kunkka, Magnus, and Tinker lineup, so the best thing you can do maybe is put your Kunkka on the high ground, but even that doesn't feel very good. So overall, close series for CIS Rejects. It was a long one, but they do take the series 2-0. The 2-0 doesn't really reflect just how even this series was. This one could have easily gone to 3 games, but regardless, CIS Rejects still take that win. Now moving on to December 3rd, where we had 2 matches this day. We had V Gaming taking on Fantastic 5. This was a pretty great series, notably V Gaming picking Pudge in every single game. Now, I thought that was pretty funny, and they made it look pretty good too. They were playing in the pause 4 role, which is what Team Secret did against OG. That looked terrible, but they make it look good. Notably, this was a pretty back and forth series. Again, it went to 3 games, and unfortunately, in that 3rd game, the entire team for Fantastic 5 ended up disconnecting around the 35-minute mark. So it's really unfortunate. I don't think that would have really had an impact on the outcome of the game, given that they were running an early tempo lineup and they had already kind of lost their lead and things were spiraling out of control. But still, having a 5-man disconnect is not something you want to see. One of their players managed to reconnect after a few minutes, and he tried controlling all 5 of them, and he actually had a nice combo going. He used the Grimstroke stun on his Storm, zipped them in, pulled them all together, but it's one man trying to control 5 heroes, so they just all die, and that game's kind of over. So kind of a funny highlight. Unfortunate for Fantastic 5, but V Gaming, hey man, if they're picking Pudge and making it look good, I'm all for it. I love to see Pudge in competitive because that hero is pretty dead for 99% of the time. Finally, moving on to the last series of that day, we had Hydra versus Winstrike. Hydra being one of the newer teams, Winstrike being a team that's been around the pro scene for a little while, but have definitely been underperforming for some time. Winstrike had a strong start in game 1, but they lose a very crucial fight around the mid-game point. They kind of just got out team fought. There's not really much else to say about that. Hydra just had a really, really nice team fight execution, and there was just no response at a certain point for the Dream Wraith King. I feel weird saying Dream because of the whole Dream meme thing, but yeah, his Wraith King was fantastic in that first game. Winstrike really had no answer, and then in game 2, Blizzy, who was playing as Magnus in both games in this series, the RPs that this guy was hitting was fantastic. Again, it was another one that was kind of close to start, but from good pickoffs all around, Hydra just kind of out-team fought them in this series. So good start for Hydra. They get off to a 1-0 start, and I'm sure they're pretty happy with the results here. And then finally, ending off the matches of this week, we had the second series in the week for CIS Rejects and Bait. I had talked about it earlier, how Bait was really looking for a bounce back on this one. CIS Rejects looking to extend this to a 2-0 start to the season. And again, Bait shows that they're able to get off to good starts pretty consistently. In game 1, they got off to a very good start. They had a pretty solid lead, but they just couldn't close out the game. And eventually, CIS Rejects, although they didn't exactly play well themselves either, they kind of get to this point where Bait just can't fight them anymore. They've waited too long. Ramsey's Lifestealer is just way too strong at this point. He's like a raid boss. He can 1v5 them. And this one just slips out of the hands of Bait again. It feels like that has happened so much already in just the first 2 weeks. And as soon as they kind of lost momentum in that first game, that was kind of the end of it for Bait. Game 2, they were never in it. Game 2 was a completely one-sided stomp. They just never woke up, and yeah, so even though this exactly wasn't the cleanest win for CIS Rejects, they do get the win nonetheless. This looks like a lot more of the fault of Bait than it is that CIS Rejects outplayed them necessarily. But regardless, a 2-0 win is a 2-0 win regardless. So yeah, Taking a look at the standings now, again, CIS Rejects sitting with a 2-0 start. They're pretty happy with that. Again, not the most convincing thing. It's not the same here as PuckChamp in the upper division. They don't exactly have that same level of high quality, very tight and clean Dota. This has been a pretty sloppy 2-0 start, but again, they'll take it. They just need to finish top 2 to make it to this upper division. For Gambit, V Gaming and Hydra, they're all tied at 1 win each. We then have Nemiga 5, Fantastic 5, and Winstrike all sitting at 0-1 right now. They're all looking for a bit of a bounce back. And Bait, probably the most desperate for a bounce back right now, sitting at 0-2. And they've had their highlights, but they just are having a really hard time in the mid to late game point of these games. And it's something that they're definitely going to need to work on, because now, again, those upper division slots, when you start off 0-2, starts to get a lot less likely. It's looking like right now they're going to be fighting for their lives to just not finish bottom 2. And in order to do that, they're going to need to win likely at least 3 of their next 5 series. So they need to win more now than they need to lose. So yeah, we'll see how it ends up going for Bait. This might be the second time that they're getting knocked out of the DPC in just a year. Taking a look now at some of the stats in the lower division, the top heroes being Magnus, starting off at 3-0, so very strong start for Magnus. He's been being played a lot in the offlane, a lot more of that utility build that we were seeing a lot around TI. Of course, with the nerf of Horn Toss, it hasn't been the exact same, but you get the idea. And Bane, 4-2. Again, Bane, one of the best heroes. Right now in both divisions combined, he's 8-4, which is definitely respectable. Again, not the craziest win rate, but 8-4 when you're being picked 12 times out of 22 games, that's pretty impressive. For the worst heroes, we have Weaver and Queen of Pain sitting at 1-3 each. Notably, all 3 of the losses on Queen of Pain are from Bait. Dendi has notably looked very good on the Queen of Pain. He just, again, can't secure the wins. I don't think this is necessarily on Dendi directly, but again, team's just not really working right now. And for Weaver, 2 of those losses also coming from Bait, so kind of rough, as Weaver is one of the best heroes right now, and they just aren't finding success with it. The most banned, there were 55 total heroes banned. Beastmaster and Io leading the way with 8, and Invoker again showing up here with 7 on him. The top GPM teams right now being CIS Rejects with 25-97. That makes a lot of sense given that their games have been a lot longer, like I've mentioned, so naturally the GPM goes up and up as the game goes on. Nemiga with 25-16 and Hydra with 24-06. For top XPM, we have Nemiga leading the way with 32-49, which is kind of funny because they lost the series, but they lead the way in XPM. But again, same kind of thing as why Rejects are at the top of the GPM leaderboards right now. That series was quite long, and there was a lot of farming going on throughout that game and a lot of killing as well. So that makes a lot of sense there. For Hydra, they have 30-55, and for Gambit, they have 29-38. For top KDA, we have Gambit with an astounding 9.47, which is very high, but again, small sample size. We then have Hydra with a much more realistic KDA and maintainable KDA with 5.11, and V Gaming with 4.18. Now leading the way in GPM for players, we have Ramses leading the charge with 852. We have DWB with 834, him notably being from V Gaming. We have Knight with 756, he's from Gambit. For XPM, we have DWB leading the way again with 808. We have Kitterick coming in from Nemiga with 791. We have Dream coming in with 756 from Hydra. So again, Hydra getting off to a pretty impressive start, him being one of the notable reasons why they did so well. For top KDA, we have Knight leading the way with 35, which again is not going to be a maintainable KDA, but it's still quite high. We have DWB with 32.5 and Dream with 17. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been my review of Eastern Europeans past week. If you guys like this new format better than my other one, or if you think I should go a little bit more in depth with my reviews for every single match, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. You guys can also let me know, do you think Virtus.Pro turns it around in their next series? Do you think that the changes that they made were maybe a mistake? They did finish top 6 at TI, and they voluntarily changed the roster up. You guys can let me know all about it in the comments down below as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys later tonight with another video where I preview the lower divisions next week.